everyone, and welcome to this panel discussion titled Readying for a Sustained Comeback in Semicon and Electronics and Electrical Manufacturing Sectors. What are the key priorities? The key word here above is sustained comeback. We all know in the current environment that healthcare, diagnostics, and Semicon with E&E, which is electronics and electrical manufacturing, is keeping us going and need to become sustainable. Hi, I'm Rakesh Jaiswal, Director at Enterprise Division at the Agency for Science, Technology and Research. I'm pleased to be moderating this panel. We are having a conversation for about 10 months since COVID-19 first appeared on the scene. As all of us know, that the pandemic widely impacted numerous industries, leading to disruptions in workforce deployment, operations, supply chain, and production that affected demand fulfillment. Many of our Semicon and E&E players are facing complex issues even as they consider the challenges, and that they would key priorities are to look ahead. Our discussion today will look into some of these issues, and I'm pleased to introduce our esteemed lineup of panelists, starting with Mr. Lee Peng Sian, Honorary Secretary team, which is the Electrical and Electronics Association of Malaysia. Welcome, Mr. Lee.
Thank you, Rakesh.
Moving on to Dr. Danilo Lachetia. He's from CP. He's the President of Semiconductor and Electronics Industries in the Philippines Foundation. Welcome.
Thank you. Hello. Thank you, Rakesh. Good afternoon, everyone.
So moving on to Tetsuo-san Kobayashi, he's Director of Business Development, ASBIL, Advanced Automation. He's calling from Japan. Welcome, Tetsuo-san.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I'm really pleased to join this meeting. Thank you very much for your introduction.
Moving on to Matt Chan, he's from SAP. He leads the industry 4.0 go-to-market strategy for Asia Pacific and Japan.
Thank you, Rakesh. Hello, everyone.
So getting on to the next panelist, who's Kelvin Ong. He's the solutions lead at Delta Electronics, and he's joining our panel as well.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Rakesh.
Sure. So last but not the least, Saj Kumar. He's the regional business lead for manufacturing at Microsoft Asia. Welcome, Saj.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks for being here with us. I think this is really an exciting panel to me, where I see that each of the panelists is coming either from a country perspective or a company perspective, and a lot of wealth of knowledge. So without further ado, what I would say that I would like to invite each of you, each of the panelists, to share with the audience, maybe in like a 2 to 3 minutes kind of a time frame, about your background, the organization which you work on, and the initiatives and the focus each of your organizations have on the Semicon and the E&E sectors. So maybe I'll like Mr. Lee to kick it off, and then probably follow Dr. Dan and so on. So Mr. Lee, over to you.
Right, thanks, Rakesh. I'm P.S. Lee. I'm the Honorary Secretary of Electrical Association of Malaysia. Good day to everyone. The Electrical and Electronic Association of Malaysia, this association was formed way before that. I think most of us are born. It was in way back in 1952. Right, which has a history of almost like 68 years by now. It is actually consists of approximately by now, this is approximately 1,900 members, and primarily all of them are in the involved in the nation building. So because it's a station that consists of 3 segments. The first segment is actually the construction-related M&E construction, which is the electrical contracting. And the second segment is the trading business in the E&E trading. And the third segment is actually the manufacturing, E&E manufacturing. So, well, we are not less than, we always call ourselves that less seen people, because you see all the buildings, you will never see all these things here. You will only start to look at it when there is no power to the building. So that's why we are always a very low profile people behind. Thanks to COVID-19, that because due to this COVID-19, that everybody start to say is that, okay, you guys in the E&E, you are the essential supply, because all hospitals needs to be powered up and everything needs power. So they start to realize that, okay, you guys are essential, right? And then start to realize that we need to do more. So I'm so glad to be able to be part of this discussion today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Dr. Dan, your views?
Thank you, Rakesh. Hello again. I'm Dan Lachica, the president of SAPI, or the Semiconductor and Electronics Industry Association of the Philippines. We represent 338 member companies from semiconductor manufacturing, electronics manufacturing services, the supply chain, and the academe. As an industry, we account for over 60% of our country's commodity exports, employ over 3 million direct and indirect workers, and contribute over 10% of our country's GDP. Like most industry associations, our goal is to create a competitive business environment for electronics and technology businesses. We accomplish this through our mission with the acronym TRAINS, and it stands for Training, Roadmap, and R&D, Advocacies, Information, Networking, and Services for and among our members. Since we operate in a global environment, SAPI has partnerships with like organizations in China, Singapore, Taiwan, France, and the US. We are currently in exploratory talks with a couple of Malaysian organizations, namely SPAM and MICDA. Now that I have virtually met Mr. Lee, I hope we can work with TEEAM as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dan. Dr. Dan, sorry. And Tetsuo-san, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Tetsuo Kobayashi from ASBIL Coalition. And ASBIL is, consists of 3 major companies. One is Advanced Automation Company, and the other is a Building Automation. And another is Life Automation Company. And I'm from the Advanced Automation Company, which provide the product solutions and services for the factory and the plant, mainly for chemical, automotive, and a kind of machine or equipment manufacturer for the semiconductors and the E&E customers. And building automation provides kind of environment control technology, which bring comfort and functionality to energy efficiency required for today's buildings. And we are kind of products such as sensors, controllers, actuators, and the solutions supplier to semi and E&E equipment or machine manufacturers at the moment. Then actually, I have to express first of all, but here I would like to extend my deepest sympathy to those who have suffered from COVID-19 and experienced hardship as a result of the pandemics. Well, after COVID-19 society looks like, I think it's quite similar with Industry 4.0 societies. Well, though we are already embarking kind of digitalization activities before the COVID-19 hit, in order for the manufacturing industry to grow sustainably, it will be necessary to balance the distributed and aggregated. And for the purpose, openness and remote will be a kind of key factor and should be promoted further. That's all. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Tetsuo-san. So how about Matt? Maybe you want to share your views as well?
Thank you, Rakesh. So this is Matt from SAP. I'm leading Industry 4.0 go-to-market in Asia Pacific and Japan. So I work in the manufacturing area for 20 years. I stay in China, Taiwan, and also Singapore right now. So SAP is the enterprise software company to help our customer and manufacturers to become the intelligent enterprise. Especially in this year, we focus on the three key pillars. The first one is the resiliency, right? So because lots of business owners believe right now digital transformation is not an option, it's must to have. Then we try to build and the connection to connect all the entire business process together from R&D, sales, supply chain, and manufacturing to connect together to provide a visibility and agility. And second is more focused on the profitability, because under Industry 4.0 topic, there are lots of company talking about how we leverage Industry 4.0 to increase the productivity and how we fasten go-to-market and time to market to secure the revenue. So that is the profitability. And the last one is sustainability, how we build the social, environmental, and economic sustainability. So these are the three key pillars that SAP would like to bring to all the manufacturers and the customers to become the intelligent enterprise. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Matt. So with SAP coming in, let me get over to Saj to give his perspective from Microsoft and his own perspective as well.
Thank you, Rakesh. My name is Saj, and as I said, the regional leader for manufacturing. I've been in the industry for over 32 years and worked with manufacturing companies around the region as well as globally. From a Microsoft perspective, we're looking at, especially in the current scenario with returning back to work, our first priority is to ensure workforce transformation. So how does the new workforce look like post-COVID, as we have restricted workspaces, increased safety, distancing in the workplace. So that's number one for us. How do we transform the workforce? Number two is how do we transform the factory? So from an agile factory perspective, are we driving more automation? Are we introducing more AI into the shop floor? How do we change manufacturing? And we believe that the change may not be temporary, it may be actually permanent post-COVID. So how do we drive these changes from robotics, from processes, from an AI perspective? The third one, and probably one of the most critical ones, is supply chain. How does supply chain actually change as we look to the future? Do we look at regional supply chains, country-specific supply chains, or maybe multiple model supply chains? So this is something that many companies are struggling with right now, because with geopolitics as well as with COVID-related changes in logistics, companies are looking to change their entire supply chain model.
Thanks, Saj. So Calvin, I think meaning you're not the last one, but you're the most important one to sort of give your views before I get the panel started off.
Hi everyone. I'm from Delta Electronics. So actually, we are a global supplier of power and thermal management solutions. So it is always in our mission statement to provide innovative, clean, and energy efficient solutions for a better tomorrow. And I think this COVID-19 pandemic, whether it's to a large or small extent, has actually affected everyone's life. I think to a certain extent. So for Delta business categories, we actually include the power electronics, industrial automation, and infrastructure. And I'm from the industrial automation division. And for us, we actually work on, we offer automation products and solutions so that we can actually help our customers, help our clients to actually go through digital transformations, and also work with them on how to leverage all the data which is being collected to actually make their processes, make their factories more smart, more complete, so that they can actually be more resilient during even after this COVID-19 crisis. And from my end, what I would say is that we also provide information monitoring and management systems such as SCADA and industrial EMS from our side, so that we can provide from hardware to a software layer to providing a smart factory management system for the Semicon and also the E&E industries. That is from my portion.
Okay, thanks, Calvin, and all the panelists. I think what I see as a common thread, which is emerging from each of your introductions and also considerations, is that workforce issue is definitely one thing which we are all talking about. Safe operations is what we want to go into in this new environment, which is going to be our new reality. And how do we transform our workers? Those are a few common things which comes out. And once we transform to the new work environment, how these workforces are going to change, the organizations, the industry, and even maybe the countries, like how they operate, what they do. So we with that in mind, right? And we have to really look at the disruption which is happening on both sectors, which is Semicon or even maybe E&E sector, are huge for supply chain perspective. So we just need to maybe I'll start off the panel with Mr. Lee to talk about the workforce issues, which is most urgent for your industry members, which is I think the most lively thing, which I think you might be kind of keeping you awake at the night, kind of things to share with us. And also what restrictions and disruptions is labor supply kind of bringing in because of this COVID-19. So maybe two questions, meaning I'll let you decide which one you want to answer, and then maybe I'll let Dr. Dan as well answer the other one, is how are our industry members handling this? That's one question. And the other question which comes to my mind is, how is this shift towards automation is being managed by technology? Meaning we just have to look at from two different perspectives. So I let you go ahead, Mr. Lee first, and then Dr. Dan to comment on this topic. Yeah.
Thanks, Rakesh. Rakesh, you're giving me a very broad question that this is I can go everywhere. But first of all, I think under these kind of circumstances, the most common thing that happened is this word. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
hello,
we can
hear me.
A little bit.
Doing a test. I'm just doing a test, actually. You see, that this is the new norm that is happening to everyone. That is, so everybody start to go into the cyberspace and then start to say that, can you hear me? Right? That has usually never happened in the normal working world, that we meet each other and then everything gets done through physical contact. But now is to say you go everywhere, that when you're in the Zoom and you're in any kind of a digital platform, that is always the first thing that happen is, can you hear me? Right. So that is I'm trying to exaggerate a little bit that this is the so-called new norm that has developed. So of course, when this thing happened, that all the members, which is in the contracting and also in the trading, we start to have this reflection that, am I really in the essential business? Because the government in Malaysia, they say that, okay, if you are in the essential business, that you can continue to operate. But when we are not being given approval to be in this category of essential, then I thought that you need my power supply to actually run your business. That am I really the essential? So that actually taken us to really think about that. This is my business that really that important, that critical, right? And that actually takes move a lot of us back into the rethink about the business direction, that what kind of a business actually that I'm in. That is and of course for the manufacturing, it will be very similar. For the manufacturer, of course, the third category of our members are in the manufacturing. So a lot of us will start to say that, okay, because in the recent years that everybody is talking about Industry 4.0, that, oh my God, that how I wish that this, I'm already the 4.0 factory, that I can just key in the data, then everything will be just produced as it is, then everything is done, that I don't need my people to be there, right? So this is some kind of expectation that is happening. And I will say that COVID-19 is really become the catalyst, or become the what you call that, something that excites the acceleration of a digitalization and also the Industry 4.0. So I think I'll just pause here that for you to continue with the rest first, then I will come back with that.
Okay, so I'll just jump right in. March was extremely difficult for our industry. The whole country was placed under what we call a community quarantine, or you may call it a lockdown. And electronics companies were shut down for a couple of weeks. But we were gradually allowed to slowly restore operations. Just like Mr. Lee said, we were an essential industry. But there were strict guidelines. Initially, we started off with 30% of capacity, and then up to 50%, and eventually up to 100%. Even so, it was extremely difficult to normalize operations due to the disrupted supply chain and the workforce availability. Most of the raw materials came from China, which was like 30% of our materials came from China. But with the partial shutdowns, supply and logistics were scarce and non-existent. With no public transportation, companies saw rising costs of shuttle transport because of the reduced capacity due to physical distancing and the shortage of buses and drivers. Moreover, some workers were averse to go out because from the safety of their homes, because they were just plain scared. So pre-COVID operations have seen I've seen a rise in both process and information automation, such as AI and plus ML, IoT, 5G, robotics, etc. COVID, as you pointed out, necessitated the shift towards health-related products and services such as telemedicine, contactless transactions, wearables for digital contact tracing, automated dispensers and sanitizers, etc. And some factories have even repurposed to produce medical electronics. Imagine, from automotive or consumer products, we started focusing on medical electronics like ventilators, diagnostic tools. And the interesting thing is some electronics companies even diverted or repurposed, as we call it, to PPE, and even societal needs like an electric bicycle when public transport was not available. So you can really see this disruption has caused us to rethink our business models. Thank you.
Right.
Thanks, Kapnan. So maybe what I would want to get is, because we got a Malaysia perspective, we got a Philippines perspective. So Tetuo-san, who's in Japan, maybe you would want to jump in and share how your organization is navigating this complex landscape and addressing some of the needs. You could cover it from your as-well perspective, or you could give another perspective for all of us to get deep dive into the discussion. Yeah.
Oh, well, okay. Actually, sorry, I don't have any statistical data, but I regularly interview hundreds of customers throughout our sales activities. I understand that the various studies and efforts were carried out, with the exception from the manufacturing side to sales activities, regardless of the industries. As a matter of course, we will review the workflow necessary to expand the scope of remote work and for business continuity, and improve the infrastructure necessary to prevent the infection at the manufacturing site. Our industry office for 24 hours monitoring the services that cannot be interrupted. Many efforts were being made, including customer side and customer initiatives. But of course, I cannot reveal the specific example of a customer initiative, but in our case, the introduction of remote sales and remote customers attendance for the inspection and the remote training, those are progressing. And there's also establishment of a cloud operation center for the customers. Yeah, we recognize those are not kind of temporary effort, but maybe including many customers and our company, but that will continue as a kind of new normal.
Okay, thanks, Tetuo-san. So actually, what you brought up is a very important topic, right? Meaning, while we look at from a overall country perspective, I think we need to also look at businesses or maybe customers in some cases. So with that, maybe Saj, what I would suggest is, if we could hear a little bit about how your business is building resilience and capabilities, but the industry players are really prioritizing it for your current survival for near term. So there are like two conflicting agendas at the same time. We need to survive this pandemic, which is like really taking us longer than what we thought initially. At the same time, we need to build up, like I think what yourself and also Matt talked about in terms of longer term resilience. So maybe share a little bit. And how do you choose to invest in one versus the other? I mean, that's another aspect which you could share with us. Yeah.
You're on mute, Saj.
Yeah, Saj, you're on mute.
So when we look at the pandemic and especially people coming back to work, one of the areas we looked at was how do you enable, for instance, resiliency in the workforce? When you look at people who are have to repair machines, complex machines in semiconductor fabrication, for instance, and the experts are not in country, the experts are maybe in Netherlands and other countries. How do you provide that? So we realized that the adoption of certain technologies actually went up dramatically. So for instance, we had ASML vendor from Netherlands working with some of the semiconductor fabs in Taiwan and other places like TSMC, for instance, where they were using Hololens to be able to get the workers much more productive, because now they're able to repair the machines, get more efficient by connecting to the experts in ASML. So this is one example of, we believe that workforce resiliency by using technology like HoloLens and the adoption of which actually grew much more than what we had anticipated.
I mean, that's a very interesting example. I think you're trying to bring pretty much like multiple entities into a place, which is making something which is really important for us, like the example of HoloLens, which you kind of like. So with that given, maybe Kelvin, I would want to hear from you, because you also come from Delta Electronics, which has also some kind of a collaboration and thinking on this. Your views on near-term challenges, and also how do you look at from a longer-term perspective you're planning for it? Yeah.
So my opinion is this. What I feel is that because of COVID-19, as what Mr. Lee has mentioned, it's actually accelerated a lot of plans that many organizations have actually put in place for digital transformation. So it actually, things that were used to be done in 2 to 4 years or even a longer timeline has to be done quicker, because they want to actually emerge stronger after this COVID-19. And we actually have customers, even maybe not so in Singapore, but in other regions where factories are still very labor intensive. And this, with the social distancing measures and everything, we really need to rely on technology to help us to mitigate such risks. So it always brings us back to the old saying that automations actually replaces human labor. But I think we should look at the idea is that automation helps to replace low value add I would say processes, and moves people to actually to do more higher value added jobs. And that is where I think that IT, technology, everything, we can come together so that we can actually help to mitigate all these restrictions that are actually put in place, so that factories can still run and they can actually produce more with lesser. And with such restrictions in place, not only factories, but actually even from the supply chain, they might also have some other issues, and we can actually look at technology so that we can actually use technology to streamline a lot of processes, so that they can actually make such a labor intensive industries to be more productive and effective. Yeah, so I would always say that hardware and IT technology, such as IoT transformation, both need to work hand in hand, and with the analysis of data would also allow the customers or clients to really understand what is exactly their bottleneck, so that they can actually go to the pain points and solve issues. Yeah, that would be where I feel that we can actually work together. So these are some areas where we are working together in Microsoft, so that we can actually help our clients to mitigate all these restrictions, and also to help them to emerge stronger after this pandemic. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Kelvin. So Matt, I'm going to switch gears now. So I'm going to come and ask you a more difficult question to sort of get everybody a little bit more excited. So we have been adopting technology to fill the gaps. So how do we not waste this crisis? Meaning, how do we use this current disruption which is happening as an opportunity? And how would you see that we accelerate the pace a little bit more? Because I think Dr. Dan as well as Saj said that we've kind of like accelerated a few of these things. but how do we accelerate it more? And this needs to be enabled by automation, analytics, and maybe AI. So your perspective, and you could give examples, will be helpful. And then maybe I'll go around to Mr. Lee and Dr. Dan as well to sort of give their views on this topic. Yeah.
Sure. I think I also want to echo what Dr. Dan mentioned, right? So during the COVID, there are lots of manufacturers repurpose their production line from building the cell phone to building the ventilators. And think about that is not just impact to the manufacturing process, but also from the design. How do you do the collaboration? Because what we understand, like Medtronic would like to share their design, their ventilator design with Ving Group of Fastcom, right? So how do they collaborate with each other? And once they build the product, and how do they follow the product compliance, follow those regulation like FDA? So they need to start from the design and then connect with the whole supply chain, build their ecosystem, understand where's their supplier to support those components, and then go into the manufacturing process. And then after they build the product, then they need to deliver the product to the end customers. And through this pandemic, we also see lots of electronic manufacturers. They do have the product, but all those products sit in the warehouse. They cannot deliver because the limited bandwidth for the logistic process. So I think that's a whole together. We need to combine the entire digital supply chain process together. And what we found some kind of innovation or some kind of priorities during this COVID, I would say lots of manufacturers are looking for two areas. One is how do they leverage Industry 4.0 to increase their productivity. And the other hand is how do they use Industry 4.0 to reduce cost. So in SAP customer, we do have one customer who built a battery for the cell phone, notebook, and also the electric vehicle. So the issue they have is their demand from the market is growing very fast, but they don't have another bandwidth in their factories. So they think about how to leverage the Industry 4.0 to increase their productivity. So they connect all the thousands of machines from the shop floor into SAP solutions to get the visibility. And then they can understand where's lost and improve the productivity from that area. So at the end, they increase 25% of their productivity in their production line. So right now they produce like 120,000 batteries per day, right? So I think that is really kind of a real case that how we increase the productivity by leveraging Industry 4.0 instead of building another plant, right? So that's one scenario from my side.
Absolutely, I think that's really a great point. Meaning, I would say, meaning over at A-Star as well, right? We have like 2 institutes which is working on, and I think they are super busy, like ARTC and SimTech, which is working on Industry 4.0. So I can see that coming through. So Mr. Lee, you want to share some thoughts or some of the examples at your side, which probably will be exciting for the panel here or for the audience? Mr. Lee, you want to unmute?
My apology. Right. This is a very interesting question. You see, this is something that even the government, no doubt that we have the National Disasters Control Center and all sorts of agencies that is set up to take care of everything. But when this thing comes by, that everybody is caught by surprise. And then when we get into the mode that, well, we allow certain industry to, we say that, okay, E&E need to go. And then what really come forward is actually the supply chain problem and the logistic. These are the 2 things that was never been thought of. That okay, we need to get this thing fixed, but where does the supply come from? We need to get the PPE, and where does the raw material come from? And then then really immediately that is arouse the next question that we never really think that is so important, that is of the supply chain. And this is really this is the time that the makers rethink, and this we are actually capitalizing on this chance, and we work very closely with the government and especially with the MITI We are so thankful that our government agencies leave it aside all the politics, but I can assure you that all this is a government agency. They are really working throughout 24 hours and just to make sure that they have a minimum disruption of the industry productivity. And we actually work very closely with all these agencies to ensure that the entire supply chain can be maintained so that the minimum disruption of this thing happen. Of course, you heard about that even the ports are locked down, and then well, after through the all sort of working together with the dialogues and the interference, and they open it up and then enable all these things to work. I think this is a very enabling factor that they came to us, that we have never had that kind of a working relationship. That so when the disaster comes, that is really forcing us to work closer with them. And that is on a higher level, but in the lower level, I think that is another one that is less focused on, and in fact, that is the most important thing, is the motivational factor of all our workers. Right. You will see that a lot of Malaysian, many of them are actually those especially hard labor, and these are actually, even without the work, that how are they going to survive, especially with their paid daily wages, for example. So this become a very important factor. And as you see, a lot of us that actually our lifestyle is that when we're free, we just go to the shopping center and then hang around. And then now you ask them to 24 hours to stay at home. That is a totally different kind of a norm. And then as industry, it becomes quite challenging for all of us to look at this particular motivational factor as well. And it is the social well-being of our employee. So I think this is the opportunity that really makes all the industry to start thinking the word humanity. Right. So I think this is something that never in our history, we have always put the profit, always put the productivity and the efficiency in the front end. And this is around that we are talking about collaboration, we are talking about the humanity and so forth. Right. So I think that this is really a different perspective that this is we learn. Back to you, Rakesh.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what you brought up is very important point. I think what I see here, both the governments as well as the people need to work together. And I think at this point of time, people are the central piece. So with that background, right? I mean, but then I would want to go back to your point, I think, which you mentioned earlier, that 10% of the current GDP in Philippines is coming out from the electronics sector. So maybe you can give us a little bit more light in terms of guidance for countries here, I would say, more specifically, that how is CP or Philippines handling it, and then we can better prepare next time if something similar of that nature happens.
Okay, well, let me kind of give it some context. During the lockdown, the multinationals actually triggered their BCPs as with everybody else. They wanted to ensure continuity of customer supply by transferring limited volumes to their plants in other countries. Meanwhile, the workers were paid to stay home while anticipating the restart of operations. It would be wiser to keep the workers on the payroll compared to letting them go. Because the alternative of recruiting, hiring, training, losing productivity during the learning curve, it's that cost is much bigger than just paying the people. It's more humanitarian approach, just like Mr. Lee was saying. Then what happened was close communication between the public and private sectors to define and implement control measures. Industry also came together to develop, benchmark, and share best practices to minimize the risks of COVID infection. There were no competitors. Instead of treating each other as competitors, we were cooperators in what we call the spirit of bayanihan, a Filipino word for the community spirit of working together as one. And that was exemplified in the situation that we had. Now, moving forward, we talked about Industry 4.0. The Philippines, unfortunately, in terms of Industry 4.0, the implementation is kind of like scattered and not cohesive. So our organization is actually, when you talk about what to do moving forward post-COVID, we've formed a task force to educate our members on the benefits of Industry 4.0 to help ensure that their businesses survive, to shorten the recovery phase and help businesses return to normal and as quickly as possible, and to provide a platform to develop new, more resilient businesses in the medium and long term. We all know what the technology trends are, but the examples that we give to the members would be, say, for example, we talked about supply chain. How about the visibility of real-time availability of raw materials, finished products, people, and property? Or using AI and machine learning to continually review and reschedule activities. Perhaps utilizing mobile technology, digital twins, augmented reality and virtual reality, workers so that workers can more easily perform their tasks, or 3D printing to fabricate spare parts so that are stuck in the supply chain, or the use of autonomous vehicles or AGVs. So the possibilities are limitless. So when as right now we're in a survival mode, just cranking out the products for customer demand. But I think beyond what we have today, we ought to look at technologies to help us bring to the next level, to catch up on the momentum that was lost and to adjust and thrive in the new normal.
Yeah, so I think that's very relevant. So I think that background, what I see here, and I have distinguished panelists here from industry as well. So I would probably want to look at what are the technological solutions beyond today's world, what we see here, and what are the collaboration opportunities and initiatives, which I think I already see. Saj and Matt already have kind of this thing. So maybe I'll pose this question to first with Saj, and then Matt and Kelvin to jump in to sort of give their perspective and technological solutions which is coming in, which is really going to be in a collaborative way for us to move forward. Yeah.
So, number one is when we look at the workforce today and transforming them, I think AI skills is very important. And probably last week, the Singapore government also announced initiatives to get people skilled up on data science, as an example, in the polys, right? So we are actually working closely with A-Star, with Nanyang Poly, Singapore Poly, to make sure that we get the next generation of workforce skilled on newer technologies. I'll give you an example. So we worked with Jabil Greenpoint, and one of the things they were looking at in the PCB production line, historically they've been AOI or optical inspection tools already available where they look at solder and geometry and placement, etc. But the problem was that the technology that they're using in the production line still created a lot of false positives, which meant that the board went off the main line, went into a manual process where the technician had to then use a microscope to analyze the board. We realized that there is potential to use on the edge AI, using basically an edge-based FPGA server that allow you to process about 560 images. So probably 10 times order of magnitude higher than what they're doing right now, and allows you to use to speed up the production line, reduce the number of errors, and thereby save on worker productivity. So these are examples of, I think, where AI can play a big role in driving production optimization, and the need for the workforce to transform, to understand how you can leverage that much better in the manufacturing operations.
Yeah, thanks, Saj. I think I see like you speaking more like a hardware manufacturer than Microsoft, right? So compliments to you.
Well,
So, Matt,
Microsoft's also a manufacturer, so we ship roughly 20 million devices and Surface Hubs and Surface laptops, etc. Most people don't realize the in the world in terms of either consumer devices or data center servers that we use in all our data centers. It's all made in our factories.
Absolutely, I think it's a good learning. Matt, you want to say something?
Sure. Yeah. So I think I got a two use case. One is how we use AI together with some sensors put on the workers, right, to detect the heartbeat and also those blood pressure, right. So to make sure the work safety, and also use the AI to detect what are there any risk going to be happen. So that is how we leverage the sensors from the hardware side together with the AI, and to make sure we have a health worker working the ground floor. And second use case is more focused on the maintenance topic, right? How we use those machine learning and the AI by collecting those machine data. Because in semiconductor industry, also electronic, how we make sure reliability in the shop floor environment, right? So to make sure those are real-time data collection from the machine side, together with AI and the machine learning, that we can predict which machine is going to be failure in the next few days, right? So we can trigger the notification and trigger the maintenance. Then we can have a high reliability in the shop floor, and also we can reduce the cost, right? So I think that's some two use case from my side.
Okay, very good. I think that sets the stage for Kelvin to come in and educate us more how Delta is dealing with this. Yeah.
So maybe from my side is that one use case that we actually had customers where their production was actually disrupted due to the COVID-19, where they actually have workers who had to be quarantined. So they are actually operating at about 20 to 30% productivity. And when you have such a very low workforce, you are also very worried about maintenance. So, and also if the machines are old, so it's very hard for them to actually link the old machines up to the SCADA or MES system. So we are actually working with our customers to actually link their old machines to the new machines, and also to actually collect data from these machines, so that we can actually make use of the data to do things like we call it predictive maintenance. Because with such a low workforce, any stoppages in the production line will be a very bad situation for them. So we are actually working with them to do things. So with data, with technology, we are able to do, instead of doing a preventive maintenance, you are moving into things such as predictive maintenance. And as mentioned, when workers, they are being quarantined, sad thing is that sometimes experienced workers, they may not really impart a lot of their knowledge to the junior workers. So we are also working with our customers to actually provide technology so that they can actually provide remote help, remote maintenance from experienced personnel, so they can actually work remotely, but at the same time they are also building up their local workforce. They are also building up their current workforce, so that when all the workers come back, they emerge stronger from these pandemic. So these are certain areas where we are actually working with our clients on, so that they are able to make use of technology. They are able to make sure that they do not need to replace old machines, but we can actually work with them, make use of the data from the machine, do predictive maintenance, skill up the current workers, even where they have experienced workers from a remote location. Yeah. So these are areas that we are helping our clients.
Okay, good. So Kelvin, I think that's a very enriching many areas which you're covering across. So we are kind of like coming to the like almost last 10-12 minutes of the panel. So Tetu-san, maybe you can give a perspective, and then what I want to do is I want to go around the table and sort of wrap up with each of your views with all the experiences and topics which we've talked about. So Tetu-san, maybe you can just take a 1 or 2 minutes to explain, or maybe kind of wrap up from your side as well.
Oh, it's me?
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, as many of you told already, our company already provided a kind of online anomaly monitoring system utilized with the big data for online detection of possible an anomaly mainly in the processes. That is not a semi-market, but a kind of chemical and equipment. And our further variable forecasting system offer the monitoring and important processes and prediction of changes. And those technology will be renewed and developed and then that those kind of technology will be equipped in the machine monitoring, which will be used in production field of semi. Okay, and here actually those AI technology or kind of advanced sensing technology will be applied to not only the kind of large or kind of a big company, but the small and medium-sized companies or manufacturers, not only in the semi market or also in another industries. And for resolving the issues such as kind of prevention of critical accident or adaptation of aging population and so on. At the beginning, I have already told that the post or after Corona society really looks like a kind of industry 4.0 society to be realized. So, what most important is we have to study more about the balance of distributed and aggregated. And for the purpose, what we have to open and what we have to do in remote, that will be a kind of a key. Also, our human being role will be changed because kind of manufacturing site or production site will move toward the kind of autonomy stage, not the kind of just automation. So, as somebody told, the kind of a data scientist or data analyst will be a kind of important, that will be a kind of main role for the human being in future. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Tatsan. I think that's very insightful. What I would say is maybe now we kind of go back and wrap up the panel and sort of get Mr. Lee to share his views and key lessons learned and advices for us, rather, I would say, going forward. And then we will just go around the room as we said before. Yeah.
Rakesh, you promised me an advertisement time that, okay, I'll take this chance to advertise. For Malaysia E&E, we are actually contributing about close to 40% of the total export for the total Malaysian export. And this is always the focus of a Malaysian, that the E&E must be given a certain priority. But of course, as an association, we always go back to the government to look at the, leave aside the Semicon, which is they're already able to survive and then thrive by themselves. That is the traditional E&E, that is the electrical side, that must be given the similar kind of attention. Because regionally, not just Malaysia, I think it's the other countries will face the same thing, that traditional electrical, like a switchboard cable and a bus, like the rest of others, are just such a boring thing. But without all these things, that Industry 4.0 is not able to become a reality. So all these products must be given the similar kind of attention as well. So I think the government start to realize that, and then I think a lot of that in terms of aid and in terms of a fund, grant, all these things are throwing in terms of digitalization, in terms of the Industrial 4.0 intervention fund. There's a lot of this kind of a mechanism which is already available to encourage those which is in the 2.0, 2.5, and the Industry 3.0 to move forward towards this particular direction. So I'm taking this chance to actually advertise that, we look forward for any kind of a collaboration possibility that to actually make this industry great. Last word that for me is I think the nature has giving us a big lesson. Right, I think all of us is really learn from this. Is the lesson being that the way that we behave, and the most important thing is the way that we the strategic thinking, right, is not just the profit base. I think we could start relook into the this new term called economic of goodness, right? The goodness for the humanity and the goodness that's for the Mother Earth. I think that is become a new norm of the thinking frame. That is the business that we want to thrive, and it has to go in line with this. I think that is the my takeaway from here. Right.
Thanks, Mr. Lee. I think, and Dr. Dan, I would wanted to hear more about your Society 5.0, but I think today we really are short of time. So I would maybe get your words of wisdom for us.
All right. Well, just quickly on Society 5.0, and perhaps Kobayashi-san probably knows more about this than I do, but it's a concept that was introduced by Japan during the G20 summit in Osaka. But essentially, it aims to create a society. I think it's relevant today also moving forward, a society where people can resolve various social challenges by incorporating innovations which we talked about. For example, Industry 4.0 is about how to get the job done, while Society 5.0 emphasizes how to optimize the man-hour responsibility to get the job done. Industry 4.0 features effectiveness of using automated machines. Society 5.0 focuses on the effectiveness of optimizing knowledge workers assisted by intelligent machines. 4.0 is about computerized communication. Society 5.0 is meant for the harmonization of work with the help of intelligent machines for the benefit of the workers. And then lastly, I only want to talk about one thing else, and that is we talked about our issues with supply chain resources and all that. We talked about our use cases of technology. The thing that we didn't talk about is about the use of technology to fight COVID, right? What I'd like to see really is a cooperation among countries, among societies for the co-development of a vaccine, and using AI and big data and other technologies to be successful with that. For instance, some of these vaccines, of course, we started with antibody rapid tests, went to antigen, etc., and now pool testing. But there's still challenges. We don't have enough PCR lab capacities worldwide. And the fact is, some of these vaccines require sub-zero temperatures. So how do you transport that? So the use of technology, I believe, is important. The collaboration among the international community is important. Technology sharing is important, because when you look at this battle is not just about working together in a country, in one country.
Dan, maybe I'm sorry I'm cutting you off, but in the interest of time, I really want to give time to our other colleagues as well to wrap up. So maybe just one word or two words for us to take it on from there.
I'm finished.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Dan. And then maybe I'll give a minute each to Saj and Matt. And Kelvin, if really run out of time, then sorry about it. But yeah, let Saj get on, and Matt after that, yeah, for your last words, yeah.
Thank you. First of all, it's a great pleasure to be part of this distinguished panel, and good to meet all of you. From me, last words are essentially, we see this transform through digital technologies. And we think companies, as they come back, should look at the opportunity to transform themselves using some of the technologies, but put it in kind of short-term buckets, do in 3 to 4 months, and try to derive value from that. These are my last words.
Okay, well, sure. Thanks, Saj. Matt?
Okay. We believe Industry 4.0 is now, because we understand Industry 4.0 coming from 2011, right? So, and during this COVID and the crisis, and there are lots of opportunities in Southeast Asia, in India, and also China double down in semiconductor industry. So this is a huge opportunity for Industry 4.0. And second part is Industry 4.0 is not just on manufacturing. It starts from manufacturing, but we'd like to connect with the entire supply chain, logistic, and also the entire ecosystem. So I think that's my last word about
very good. Very well summarized. Kelvin, anything which you want to add to?
So maybe from my point is that I think this COVID-19 pandemic has actually disrupted a lot of production processes, and actually the normal way of working with each other has actually changed. So like processes that actually rely a lot of people being in a certain area together, sharing know-how and even expertise that actually reside in the I would say, the brains of all the key production staff members. So I think COVID-19 has accelerated digital transformation, and I think manufacturers, by embracing this digital as a new way of working, will also help them to weather future crises, future disruptions, and also it will help them to increase their current efficiency and effectiveness. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that has been a great discussion. So thank you everyone for sharing your thoughts and insights. I would say that audience would be joining us also thanks to them, and they would take this conversation in a much more deeper sense and come back to us. And apologies for shorter time for some of you, because I guess we are all like kind of pressed for time. Okay, thanks all.